Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In the world of classic automobiles, there are names that evoke pure passion, engineering brilliance, and timeless style. Ferrari is, without question, one of those names. But while most enthusiasts are familiar with the iconic Ferraris of the 1960s and 70s, there are earlier models, more experimental machines, that laid the foundation for the Ferrari mystique. One such rare gem is the Ferrari Pajaroe of 1955, a car shrouded in both elegance and legend. It is not the most famous Ferrari, not the one that comes up first in conversations about Brunello's finest creations, but it is a car that tells us everything about where Ferrari was headed during the mid-1950s, a time when the brand was still carving its identity in both racing and luxury culture. The year 1955 was an interesting moment in automotive history. Across the globe, manufacturers were experimenting with style and engineering in a way that hadn't been seen before. Post-war prosperity meant people wanted not just cars, but cars that symbolized freedom, individuality, and status. In Italy, Ferrari was beginning to dominate international racing circuits, with victories at Le Mans and in Formula One drawing the attention of wealthy clients who wanted a piece of that magic for the road. But Ferrari wasn't just about speed, it was about creating road-going works of art, machines that combine competition engineering with the sophistication of grand touring. The Ferrari Pajaroe was very much a reflection of that philosophy. At its core, the 1955 Pajaroe was a balance between race-bred performance and hand-built Italian craftsmanship. The heart of the car was its V12 engine, a jewel of engineering that had already become Ferrari's signature by the mid-1950s. This particular motor, derived from Ferrari's Colombo V12 lineage, delivered a blend of smoothness and raw power that was simply unmatched in its time. With displacement just over 3 liters, it produced power figures that astonished road testers of the day, figures that not only matched but often exceeded the performance of other European luxury marques. The car was capable of reaching speeds in excess of 140 miles per hour, a figure that seems respectable today but in 1955 was nothing short of remarkable for a road car. The Pajaroe wasn't just about numbers. It was about the way the power was delivered, the way the engine note climbed from a soft purr into a high-pitched symphony as the revs built. Ferrari has always been about emotion, and the Pajaroe was no exception. To drive it was to feel connected, in the most visceral way, to Ferrari's racing DNA. Every press of the throttle reminded the driver that this was not a car built in large factories for mass consumption. It was hand-assembled, each engine tuned by experts, each component carefully considered. When you drove a Pajaroe, you weren't just piloting a machine, you were experiencing the culmination of Ferrari's philosophy at that point in history. But performance is only part of the story. What really set the 1955 Pajaroe apart was its design. This was a car sculpted by the hands of Italian artisans, coach builders who turned steel and aluminum into rolling art. The lines of the Pajaroe were fluid, almost organic, with a long hood that housed the V12 in a cabin set back, giving it the unmistakable proportions of a classic Grand Tourer. The front grille carried the Ferrari emblem proudly, framed by delicate chrome accents that highlighted its sporty yet refined presence. Its curves were not aggressive but elegant, designed to catch the light in a way that made the car appear to move even when standing still. The Pajaroe embodied the 1950s ideal of beauty: clean, flowing, and balanced, without the flamboyance that would dominate later decades. The interior of the Pajaroe reflected this same balance of performance and luxury. Step inside, and you'd be greeted with leather seats crafted by hand, instruments laid out with the simplicity that spoke to Ferrari's racing focus, and a steering wheel that seemed oversized by modern standards but offered precise control at high speeds. Every switch, every gauge, had purpose. It was a driver's car, yes, but it was also a car you could take on long journeys across Europe, cruising effortlessly on winding Italian roads or stretching its legs on the newly built highways of France and Germany. This duality, track-bred performance with road-going comfort, was something Ferrari was perfecting during this era, and the Pajaroe was one of the earliest demonstrations of that ideal. The cultural impact of the car is also worth considering. In 1955, Ferrari was still a relatively small manufacturer. Owning a Ferrari wasn't just a matter of wealth, it was a matter of exclusivity. These were not cars you stumbled upon at every corner. A Ferrari Pajaroe was something only a handful of individuals could acquire, and those who did were not just buying transportation, they were buying into a legacy. Celebrities, industrialists, and aristocrats were drawn to Ferrari because it represented speed, sophistication, and above all, individuality. To be seen in a Pajaroe was to signal that you were ahead of your time, that you valued innovation and artistry in equal measure. The year 1955 was also marked by tragedy in the world of motorsport, most famously the disaster at Le Mans, which reshaped attitudes toward racing and car design. Safety became a greater concern, but Ferrari continued to push the envelope. The Pajaroe carried within it the tension of that era, the desire for speed and excitement, balanced against the growing awareness of risk. It was a reminder that driving in the 1950s was as much about courage as it was about style. Every journey in a Pajaroe was an event, a statement, and an experience unlike anything offered by ordinary cars. One of the fascinating aspects of the Ferrari Pajaroe is its rarity. Unlike some of Ferrari's later models that achieved wider recognition, the Pajaroe remained an elusive treasure, with only a limited number ever built. That scarcity has made it one of the most sought-after Ferraris among collectors today. When one comes up for auction, which is rare in itself, the bidding wars can reach astronomical levels, not just because of the car's performance or beauty, but because of what it represents. A snapshot of Ferrari's soul in 1955, preserved in metal and leather. To own one is to own a piece of automotive history, a piece that bridges the gaps between Ferrari's racing triumphs and its evolution into a global icon of luxury. Over the decades, the Pajaroe has earned a reputation as one of those hidden gems in Ferrari's history. Enthusiasts often speak of the 250 series, or the later Daytonas, but those who know the brand deeply understand that the Pajaroe was part of the foundation. It demonstrated Ferrari's ability to create cars that weren't just fast but also deeply desirable as objects of art. It was a reminder that Enzo Ferrari's vision wasn't limited to the racetrack. He understood that passion could be sold in the form of a road car, and the Pajaroe was one of the earliest proofs of that idea. Driving one today is an experience that words can barely capture. Modern cars are faster, safer, and more technologically advanced, but they lack the raw, unfiltered connection of something like the Pajaroe. The smell of the leather, the way the carburetors breathe, the sound of the V12 echoing through the hills, all of it creates an experience that is as close to time travel as an automobile can provide. It takes you back to an era when driving was pure, when cars weren't just tools but companions in adventure. For collectors, restorers, and enthusiasts, the Ferrari Pajaroe is a reminder of why we fall in love with cars in the first place. It's not just about going fast. It's about the stories these machines carry with them, the hands that built them, the roads they conquered, the people who cherish them. Each Pajaroe that survives today is not just a car but a living piece of history, a sculpture that moves, a memory of a time when Ferrari was defining itself and the world was watching. As the decades continue to roll by, the legend of the Ferrari Pajaroe only grows stronger. It may not be the most famous Ferrari, but it embodies everything that makes the brand timeless: performance, beauty, exclusivity, and emotion. It reminds us that Ferrari has always been more than a manufacturer of cars. It is a creator of dreams on wheels. And in 1955, one of those dreams was called the Pajaroe. Please like and subscribe my channel.